Welcome back to The Beat on Steam and Mud, where each week we speak to Rotorua Area Commander Inspector Bruce Horne. Good morning, Bruce.
Kia ora, good morning. So good to be back, and this week we're doing part 2 in a series that we're doing leading up on family violence, leading up to White Ribbon Day, which is the 25th of November. So I've got my good friend Maxine with me again today, and Maxine's got a huge background in social services, but particularly working with victims and offenders for family violence. So what we thought would be useful this morning would be for Maxine just to tell a few of her stories in order to give some people some help and understanding about practical things that we can do about the problem of family violence. So, what's yours, Maxine?
Morning, Dana. Yes, over the years I've dealt with many people, individuals, groups, couples, and all around the use and abuse of violence. So in all areas of violence, all the levels of abuse, whether it was physical, emotional, sexual, and from older people right down to the little young ones as well. I remember clearly one couple I had were well into their 60s, and he'd been charged with male assault of a female. And this was part of a restorative practice, so it was involving the whole whānau to come together. So it was talking to each of his adult children. There were 5 adult children, and all of them wanted to come to be with their mum. And they came in, so we did the first process of talking about what happened, and after the incident of violence with the mother, the adult daughter had come in and taken the mother out of the home. And of course the dad wanted his wife home. And so this was the first time the children had ever stood up and been able to have a say. And they told their father that they wouldn't accept any more violence against their mother, that they had watched their whole lives her being beaten, and they had never intervened because as children they couldn't. But they were all adult now and had their own children, and there was no way they were going to allow that to happen anymore. And unless he changed his ways and got some help, the mother would stay with the daughter. The mother sat very quietly, head down. It was really quite an emotional session. The dad was the same, he was head down as well. But in the end he apologised. He apologised to his wife, he apologised to the children. He never realised the impact of his violence on the children until he actually heard each one of them speak about how it had affected them and how they'd felt helpless, powerless to help her, but they wouldn't tolerate it any further. So that was quite a powerful meeting where 5 children, adult children, were able to actually speak to both parents and tell them the effects of the violence on all of them. But the family ended up, yes, embracing one another, and the dad promised he would get some help, and he did. I've worked with groups of violent men as well, dealing with anger management. Most of these were men who had committed violence and were convicted and under supervision. And when you listen to their stories of a group of 10 men, at least 5 of them spoke at quite some length about how their childhood had been so tragic for them. They had been given away at birth, some of them. Others had lost their mother, either through illness or death, or the separation of the parents. So the little boys had grown up without the mother to protect or nurture them. And they spoke of never ever having anybody just to hold them or cuddle them or soothe them, comfort them. But a lot of those young men also were sexually abused, and they really put a lot of that down towards their mother not being there to protect them. So for them, what they really thought was no woman would ever leave them again, which made them really angry and violent in their lives. And of course, when they got their first partners, that's what they were going to do. She was never going to be able to leave them. So there was a lot of healing that had to be done with the men to help them address and look at all the things that had happened to them in their childhood.
Listening to you now, Maxine, the thoughts that's running through my mind is all the layers and all the complexity to the relationships when family violence is there. And you almost get to a point where you're thinking, well, how do you unpack all this? So if somebody's listening to this and they're thinking, well, I know some people, because a common situation, I think, is people that are aware that there's something not quite right going on, but just like these children you're talking about, not that they are children, but because they don't have any knowledge or understanding of the whole dynamic of what's going on, they don't really know what to do or what their starting point might be. So if there's somebody in that position where they are aware that there's something not right going on within a family, what would you recommend that they do in terms of something practical they can do to help that family or to get things in train to start resolving those issues?
We have a lot of services available in Rotorua to help in those areas. And perhaps if you're a friend of somebody who has that sort of need, you can find out the information for them and pass it on to them and say, these are the ones that are trained, they're skilled to be able to work with your child and you to understand what's happened and to start the healing process for them. So there are a lot of services that we can actually provide here.
So, and another barrier that springs to mind as somebody hears that was, well, that's all very good, but really, I'm not sure if I would feel comfortable about just walking next door and saying to this lady, even though I know what's going on, and saying, listen, you need some help, this is who I suggest you go to. Any thoughts about how people might approach that situation in order to come across in the right way, not as a nosy Parker or somebody that's interfering, but somebody that genuinely wants to help them?
Often people can ring into different services that are available for people who have experiencing abuse or violence and ask themselves what should they do, and they will be given the information to help them to either approach the family or for somebody else to do that for them.